Okay, so just another example how we live in an age on the internet to where stuff that's really just benefits rich people, hiding behind rich white women, hiding behind, minorities, is it's like it doesn't really help minorities, but they managed to get a monopoly on victimhood. So a bunch of entitled, privileged people who got a monopoly on victimhood have found ways to just silence anybody who criticizes what they do. And what they could do could be like so barbaric and cruel and so elitist and so everything they say they hate about Republicans, but they're going to hide behind progressiveness and they're going to do all this shit that they hate about reactionaries and racists and religious fundamentalists and religious fanatics and all that. They're going to do everything wrong. They're going to be capitalist sellouts and corporate fascists, but all they got to do is pretend to be progressive to the point to where you can look at it and you can point out how this doesn't really help a transgender person. This doesn't really help gays or Muslims or blacks or anything. This doesn't really help the poor either. But because a bunch of rich white women have found out how to carry a banner for people that have been historically oppressed without actually helping them, a bunch of these rich white women feel like they are the God-ordained priesthood, feel like they are a medieval nobility, that they are somehow kings of the black people, and that if you try to criticize them, they rule over the fiefdom of blacks or they rule over the fiefdom of gays or something. You can't criticize them for doing something very elitist or abusive because they will find some way to make it like you're a transphobe or anti-Jewish or some shit. And it's really getting old, not because I'm a Republican that's just like doesn't like political correctness because sometimes it stops me from being genuinely racist. I'm a moderate. I used to be conservative, but now I guess if you measured me now to what was considered liberal and conservative in the 90s, I would have been a casual liberal. What I am now is somebody who's a moderate, who's historically conservative, but we live in a time where the people who get to dictate and represent, or rather I should say misrepresent, what it means to be progressive are people who aren't even truly liberal. They are hyper-culturally Marxist, but really they are practice corporate fascism, the union of corporation and state. They practice, they are technocrats that profess cultural Marxism as their new religion. And they do it in a way that has the religious personality disorder of medieval theocrats. They have the personality of theocrats. But what they practice is really corporate fascism and technocracy. And here's an example that I wanted to talk about. I posted an image on ImageFlip that basically said it's not right to give kids transgender operations. And I didn't just say transgender operations. I said it's a combination of hormone suppressors and puberty blockers and transgender operations. And I said that you shouldn't do that to a child even if he asks for it because that's a serious thing concerning their sexuality. And I think that I don't think that they're of the age of consent. And I think it's the same reason why you can't marry off a 12-year-old. They're not of the age of consent. Because I think that's a very serious life-altering thing to do with their sexuality. And I think that even if they have every right to do it as an adult when they're 18 to 25 or 30, 18 to 23, I think that they should have the right to do it. Although I would make them want to talk to a psychiatrist and a bunch of trusted experts to make sure that this is really what's going to be good for them and they understand what they're getting into. That's just me erring on the side of caution. I'm just saying, before you do it, I would strongly implore you to bounce off between a couple of steps before you made that very serious decision, not because I'm trying to stop you from doing it, period. Maybe you should do it, but I want you to make sure you know what you're doing, just like I would say to somebody before they get married or join the military. I want you to know what you're doing because even though you've probably heard a bunch of people, oh, he's from the Bible Belt South, he must hate trans people. Well, I don't know if I agree with you, but I do care about you as a human being, and it doesn't have to be on my terms. That if you're going to do something, even if I don't approve of it, I want you to do it in a way that takes care of you. That's what everybody feels like because we all do stuff that other people don't completely agree with. But if they love you, they want to make sure that even if you do something that they have mixed feelings about, you get the best deal possible, objectively and hopefully subjectively. So I made this meme. I posted it on Image Flip, and it said, that they shouldn't, there's some mothers, they shouldn't give their prepubescent children hormone suppressors, puberty blockers, and transgender operations, at least not until they're, 18, maybe 21, 23, 25, who knows, but at least not until they're 18. And the reason why they shouldn't do this is because it's an age of consent thing, just like the same reason you shouldn't have, children be able to be married at 12 or 13. Because even if you could argue that their body's ready, their minds probably aren't. Emotionally, they're probably a long way from getting married. Some people are never ready to get married, quite frankly. But, there's a reason why we have age of consent laws. And maybe it doesn't need to be 18 all the time. Maybe it can be 16 or 17. But that's for other people to talk about. That's like a state's issue, like Germany at 16. I digress. So the thing is, I simply said that if you force your child, if you influence your child to get all these things, all these blockers and suppressors and things that stop them from growing into a man. And it's usually done to boys. It can be done to women, but it's usually done to boys. That you are doing the left-wing and secular equivalent of a pray-a-gay-away camp. Now, some people think that, some people used to think that the gay-away camp was okay in concept. A lot of people now don't think that's okay. Even some people who might be religious conservatives might wince at it and say that might be going too far, or even if I agree with it fundamentally, it's being done wrong. So the thing is, they say that pray the gay away camps are bad. All right, they make it sound like it's some mild remnant of Jim Crow South. And you know what? In a really bad example, who am I to argue? But if pray the gay away is wrong because you're trying to suppress what a child might be, then doing this whole transgender operation before the age of 18 is the left-wing equivalent. And dare I say, you might argue that it could be worse. Because look at the barbaric empires of old, the slaver empires of the times of antiquity, the times of the Old Testament, as well as their medieval successors, and some of it even happens now. Look at the concept of eunuchs. When they would take spoils, they would take boys who may or may not have gone through puberty, and they would castrate them, and they would forcefully, horribly castrate them and basically turn them into women so that the eunuchs could be good house pets for their wives, for the Sultan's harem, the emperor's harem, the king's harem, or to be a good little house slave for women. Basically make them a fixed pet so that the men wouldn't try anything with the women that were the wives of the nobles or the aristocrats or the generals or the royals or the upper middle class or who the fuck ever was benefiting from spoils of being part of a genocidal slaver empire. And, this practice has come up off and on, through various other cultures throughout, so I'm not just singling out the Babylonians or the Hebrews or what have you, it happened in various empires of various races and religions. So the thing is that is a very barbarous practice, kind of like slavery. Actually, it often was used as slavery. Well, we think it's wrong to do that to people. Like some people don't even like it whenever we do it to pets. So the thing is that if we left that behind in the Bible times or in the medieval times, and now it's only being practiced by lunatics and people, in a third world country that might as well be medieval or Bible times, why should we do it now? If this is the trendy thing that these really privileged, rich white women do so that they could turn their own children into a eunuch, a pet that's been neutered, a house pet, a house slave, if you will. And some of these women have gone on and saying, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but some of these women have gone on and they have said, oh, I look at my little boy, my little man, and he's so sweet. And then I realize he's going to go through puberty and he's going to grow into a man, and how such sweet little boys could grow into men who feel entitled to women in their bodies. So because of this, because he has the potential to be a terrible person, or because he has the potential to be a chauvinistic bastard, instead of trying to, take responsibility as a parent and raise him right, you're just going to preemptively take away his ability to become a man. Like he's not even going through puberty and becoming a transgender after becoming an adult. You're stopping him from becoming an adult because you're trying to keep him in that domesticated thing to where he never grows out of being a prepubescent teenager. We don't need, holy shit. That's like what the difference between domesticated dogs and wolves. And you think that the whole world needs to be coddled for you? My God, woman, half of you ladies that would give your kids a transgender operation would say that it's wrong to declaw cats. And now that I know that when you declaw cats, you're actually cutting off their fingertips and not just removing their claws, I'm against it too. But if you're for animal rights, and if you're for, not declawing your cats and all that other good stuff that, hey, I might agree with, then maybe you shouldn't do something 50 times worse to your own damn kids. Are we getting to a point to where children are now just seen as cannon fodder? It was bad enough that women keep talking about aborting their babies as an empowerment thing. The argument about whether you should or shouldn't do it or not has basically been lost in the culture war. So now you have to concede that a woman has a right to choose legally, and you're even looked down upon if you make a moral argument against it. But the thing is that it keeps going on that the children become slaves of their mothers. And I'm not saying men or fathers or Republicans or Christians are great about this. I have my own beef with them. But this is one of those things to where liberals are no longer protecting children. They see children as cannon fodder in a culture war, just like Bill Maher said. And it's distressing because it feels like these women are turning their own children into eunuchs so that they could be trusted to be a conquering foreign invading army's eunuchs to take care of the king's harem. This hypergamy to where 80% of women only want to sleep with the top 10 or 20% of dudes. And the fact that they're trying to take their children and turn them into eunuchs means that it's almost like they want to be a harem of a would-be sultan, and they want their prepubescent sons to become eunuchs forever. It's bad enough that some people think along the lines of lions in nature. And you know how it is when one alpha male lion has been run off and there's a new male, any cubs or offspring that the females had with the male, the new male kills them so that, one, he's not taking care of anybody else's cubs, and two, it kind of gets the female lion in a mode to reproduce now because she's lost her children. And that's so sad because that's like what fucking animals do, dog. But the thing is that now people are doing it. And to be honest, I expected this from kind of like the hardcore, arrogant conservative crowd. And they do have their elements like this. But now that the liberals are doing this, they're just doing it the sugar-coated, politically correct way, hiding behind victims. It's hiding behind identity. The conservatives, they hide behind the identity of the majority, straight, white, Christian. With the left, they hide behind the excuses of political correctness. That's their religion. That's their religion. And then they hide behind the identity of a minority, transgender. But you're hurting children. You're hurting your own children. And this doesn't do a God bless thing for the actual transgenders or the actual homosexuals who might be in a bad spot. And Bill, I don't agree with Bill Burr on everything. I'm not for like all this tough parenting and stuff, although maybe it's necessary. But the thing is that this whole thing where a bunch of entitled white women have become like this new sub-oligarchy that is just trying to hijack all of the woke movements and make it about them. I have never seen a more group of entitled white women who, yes, white women have been done wrong and they've been getting the short staff on it, but white women are kind of doing to everybody that they don't like what the Israelis were set up to do to the Palestinians by Western colonial powers. And that's the world we live in today. And you're not allowed to have an opinion. Your stuff gets taken down because they found some way to convert telling the truth into hate speech. And I understand that there are bad faith actors out there who will start out saying something that's merely conservative or politically incorrect, and then they'll try to ease you into racism. But we need to get better at identifying that with discernment instead of silencing everything out, because this is hurting children. You're not allowed to talk about some conspiracy theories involving Hollywood hurting children, even though there's evidence to think that Hollywood has a problem with that. And Epstein Island is an indicator that there's probably some truth behind those conspiracy theories, even if they're quote unquote debunked. But you're not allowed to have that. You're not allowed to say anything. And it's like somebody once predicted that political correctness starts out protecting the little guy, but then it's meant to protect the big guy. And I think the thing is that political correctness is protecting the big guy from the middle guy becoming the little guy from yesterday's little guy. It used to be that the structure was the people on top use the people in the middle as a buffer zone from the people at the bottom that they're fucking over. But now they're just kind of doing a little switcheroo where they temporarily get the people at the bottom to be in the middle to protect them from the people at the bottom that used to be in the middle. That's the world we live in now, and they're doing horrible, horrible things. We've already got a bunch of, corporate Democrats and Biden supporters funding Nazis. I mean, they're not the only ones funding Nazis. Warmongering Zionist neocons and Israeli billionaires are funding Nazis, and these Nazis have killed 15,000 people, mostly in the Donbass region, but some of it is LGBT, gypsies, or I should say Roma, that's the proper term. They've killed women's rights groups, and they've killed a lot of political opponents. But for some reason that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they're being supported by the Israeli billionaires. And a lot of these angry white women are rushing to basically be the buffer zone for the new alpha male, and they're letting them kill their children from a previous marriage. And they're letting them turn their children from a previous marriage into eunuchs so that the eunuchs don't get the choice of being a man, and so that they can become the harem for the Sultan of whatever oligarchy is in charge. And we don't believe in that as Americans. We're being groomed by people who are predators to believe in that. And I guess I can't stop everything. But we don't believe in that as Americans, and I think it's wrong. And I think the fact that people are silencing me on the internet means that it has nothing to do with whatever they accuse me of. Oh, this is transphobic. Oh, this is anti-Jewish. Oh, this is sexist. You know what? Maybe it is. Sometimes I do that. But y'all are making it to where people telling the truth have no choice but to accidentally be or look like they're being anti-Semitic or transphobic because you're hiding behind that identity. You're hiding behind minorities. When you're part of the majority and you're a sellout and you're the only, and just like Hollywood with their race casting thing, they're not doing it to protect black people. They're doing it to use black people as a meat shield so that they can continue to do horrible things. And I don't know what it's going to take to get past this or deal with this. I guess we'll just have to wait it out and wait for them to die off. Maybe the fact that they're being so dirty means that they're being put on a diet. I guess whenever we wean ourselves off of the system, we'll be consuming less of their poison. And they can starve and go on a slow diet. The more that we wean ourselves off of the system, the less power these witches have over us.